Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CLAT podcast. I'm your host, Janardhan Pashupati. We have here with us Rachana P, who got rank 83 in the CLAT in 2023 this year, and will be going to National Law School of India University. There is a part one to this episode where we discuss the highs and lows of preparation, especially in the online mode, the importance of finding community, and doing everything that you can to figure out what is the right path for you. Go check that out. Till then, welcome to part two of this episode of episode 4. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Janardhan Pashupati. I got rank 38 in the CLAT back in the day in 2013. Just like Rachana is about to, I went to National Law School of India University, and I've had the privilege of mentoring hundreds of students in the process of cracking the CLAT. And I was lucky enough to have a few sessions with Rachana as well in that context. So, Rachna, we were talking about where we left off was that we were talking about how you shouldn't be hard on yourself. It's counterproductive to be hard on yourself when you're being inconsistent because you end up being even more inconsistent in that process. So, uh, how did you manage that? Because you were clearly taking on a lot on your plate. There was a lot to do. Uh, in terms of your preparation, was it how much of it was GK, how much of it was not GK for you?
Right. So I think there was a point in my prep in which I came to the realization that the material that I was using to practice
Yeah.
was frankly bad.
Right.
It was
Okay.
not the best that was available, but I mean, in comparison, it was better. It was less worse than the others, I
Sure.
suppose.
Sure.
But it was definitely not the best material that we could have had to practice. And that really got
Yeah.
to me at one point. And so I think for logical, especially, I cannot recommend this enough. I turned to the LSAT course that is offered by Khan Academy
Yes.
in partnership with the LSAC.
Yeah.
Because the mocks that we wrote and the answer keys to that, it was something that it was just heartbreaking. Every single
Yeah.
mock,
Yeah.
you're
No,
scared to check.
let's be honest about this. If I can't speak for the other career launchers, but the other career launcher branches in other cities, but in Bangalore, they have, and it's a centralized system of mocks anyway. So, Career Launcher has not done a good job of keeping up with the pattern change, especially in the logical section. They have a, they're not doing a good job of understanding the difference between logic and English. And in that process, LST, which is what the name of the CLAT prep product that they have is, there's a there's a long story and a really interesting entrepreneurial story there, but really it did a really good job of training people like me in the old pattern, but they've the shifting gears to the new pattern has not been the smoothest process for career launcher. And while I still think career launcher is very valuable in many ways, this needs to be kept in mind by anyone who wants to who's actively considering or going to career launcher, that you will need other sources, especially for your critical reasoning. And then I recommend law prep tutorial. I recommend, as Rachna was talking about, the Khan Academy course, which is great. So, it's I'm really happy that you flagged this off, Rachna.
Yeah, so it was something that all of us were facing a difficulty with. So I think we turned to, other sources, a GMAT Club and
Yes.
the LSAT course offered by Khan Academy were two things that quite literally became our saving grace because, it really messed with how we gauged, our own, performance in a mock versus, our intuition for answers. All of that came into question, I think, around 2 months before the
Yeah.
actual CLAT exam. And
Yeah.
that really got to us. So I
Right.
think Khan Academy, in many ways, quite literally saved my logical section. So
Absolutely.
I think, yeah, they had very systematized,
Yes.
categories for questions. They had a separate section for inference, separate for
Yes.
deduction, separate for social science based passages, humanities based passages, law based passages. And I was so happy that I somehow landed on that website, and I could use that as practice material. And I think that may have really saved my CLAT attempt.
If I may, did you get this from Hemang?
Him, I don't remember, because
Okay.
I was I'm sure he brought it up, because I remember on our group chat there was a very, very lengthy talk about how we were very unhappy and dissatisfied with Career Launcher, and we were looking to GMAT Club and other sources.
Right.
And I mean, GMAT Club worked really well for some others, but personally I did not like it as much, because I felt the logical questions, the CR
Right.
questions that we had were markedly different from the questions that we had.
Absolutely.
So and it also took me significantly more time to solve one question of GMAT CR than it took me to do
Right.
a logical question on the
No,
Khan Academy.
it's different. It's different for sure. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And so I stopped doing GMAT Club at one point, and then I was just looking up other law entrance exams, because I was scared shitless that like
Oh,
CLAT
no.
won't work out for me.
Right.
I was like, okay, it's okay, we'll just do LSAT, like worst
Right.
comes to
Oh my
worst, we'll
God.
see where we land up.
Oh my God. Oh my
So
God.
I just started
Okay.
looking up LSAT India.
It all worked
And
out. It all worked out in the end.
it
Yes.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the official LSAC website said that they had like a course with Khan Academy that was
Yes.
entirely free. And I was like, anything free, I will use it.
Sure. Sure.
Absolutely anything free, I will use
Right.
it.
Right.
So that's how I
Right.
landed up on the Khan Academy website, and it was very helpful for me.
I was just about to take credit for all this, but because I spent a lot of time like with the group and with Hemang on CR and recommended GMAT Club and the Khan Academy. So I I I thought I could take credit for this, but okay, no worries.
No, I'm
ठीक
sure you had a part to play
है.
in that, because
Right, right,
yeah, I think Hemang brought up that he was looking to other sources, and we were like, what do you have? What can we
right,
do that was
right,
all that we could think
right,
of.
right.
Also, I think I completely deflected from the question that you had asked, how much time I spent on GK versus
Yes,
the other questions.
yes, yes. That's true. Yes. Yeah.
Right. So I won't digress this time. So GK, I think in the month before CLAT, except for the mocks I was writing, all the other time spent was on GK.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mocks and mock analysis and Khan Academy. Other than that, all the time that I had was GK. It was mind numbing. Yeah, which I realize now may have somewhere been counterintuitive, because I was spending too much time on GK, but
Yeah.
I still think it worked out for me in the end, because
Right.
my GK coverage was patchy. I was aware of that.
Right.
And I just chose to do a lot of extracurriculars in like the 5 months before CLAT, because I just could not stop myself.
Right.
So I think the month before CLAT was all GK, except for other than that, it was mocks and Khan Academy. But prior to that last month, I think GK was about 60% of the time I spent on CLAT was GK, and the other 40% was on mocks and taking the sectional tests and doing GMAT Club and scoping out mocks from other institutes, which I probably should not have
No,
done.
absolutely. I was just about to suggest to people, for example, that Law Prep tutorial has some really excellent. So if you want static GK, get your hands on Shriram Law Academy's static GK material. If you want really good CR material, Law Prep tutorial is doing a really good job of that. So beg, borrow, steal. I mean, those Telegram groups exist for a reason. So
They
it's
do.
yeah. So and the people making the content know it. Like so it's a funny thing. So um uh and if yes, but there's a were you so focused on GK because your other sections were from the get-go going pretty well?
I think English was something that I never really faced an issue with,
Right.
thankfully. So I did not feel the need to really obsess over it that much. And math was 10th grade level, I believe,
Yeah, yeah.
CBSE 10th grade, whatever it is there. So it was something I was familiar with. I had actually studied for my boards. I don't know why I did that, but
Sure.
so it was something that I felt pretty confident in. And legal, we had the material there, so it
Right.
was mostly just, it was similar to comprehension plus, I suppose, a few added levels of, application.
Yep. Yep.
Was legal. And logic, I think specifically, my scores plateaued at a point.
Right.
I think a year and a half in, my scores really plateaued. And I remember bringing this up to Animesh sir so many times, because yeah, I think I really bugged him with my worries of just my scores have plateaued. What do I do? What I was very worried that and my scores were not that great. So out of like 30 questions, my scores were around a 19, 20. Sometimes even worse. They used to go down to 17 and 15s.
And
And
this was CR.
This was CR, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Right. It was something that I was very worried about. So if I was not, most of the time that I spent outside of GK was probably on CR, and that's how I found Khan Academy and GMAT Club, and just obsessively doing those questions. And I mean, I think they did a good job of making me feel confident in my own abilities.
Right.
And yeah, GK was, oh my, I mean, I'm sure, I think we'll get to GK at some point, but yeah, GK was a very big.
I mean, I think we've spoken a lot about GK, but I mean, yeah, I'd love to dig deeper into that. But so I want to put this into perspective for everybody, which is that even while you were getting 19, 20, 17, your percentile was somewhere around 90, 95%, if you would have noticed, right? So if you're getting a score of 16 and above, you are sorted for CR. Everyone is messing up CR. So if you're getting a score, like it's a GK and logical are the perennial problems of the new pattern. People getting into the CLAT are able to manage legal and are excited for legal. They work their way through maths, and they, English, they either work through the trenches or they're already comfortable with. But really, it's so I want to put this into perspective for everybody. If you're at 12, you're about average in CR, so don't beat yourself up about it. And if you're 16 plus, your percentile is around 80%, 85%. And if you're higher than that, even 1 mark higher than that, if you're 17, 18, you're really in the 90th percentile. So aim for 20, okay? Aim for 20 as a good goal. But if you are in that 15 to 20 range, don't panic, don't beat yourself up, and realize that it's you're in a really good position, especially from a percentile perspective. So I think the most important thing to talk about from a GK perspective, and knowing how you guys prepared, was that there was a lot of emphasis on month-wise preparation. So especially in the context of consistency. So how did that work for you? And especially also because you were doing so many other things. So how did that work for you?
Right. So I think the 5 months prior to CLAT, I gave myself 1 week out of the month to do things that were non-CLAT related, which
okay, got it.
Yeah, I don't know how that it really speaks to me, but that's what I did. So I think June, July, I gave 1 week for an MUN that I had to EB for, and I was in the OC for. So I was like, okay, that 1 week goes there. For the next month, we were participating in I believe a fest. So I was like 1 week prep and whatever goes there. And next, I landed at a volleyball tournament. I don't even know why. Broke my pinky finger, and it was like 1 week goes there.
Oh my God.
That was not supposed to last a week. But anyway, a week went there. So that's how I really gave myself off time, because I knew if I did consistently all 4 weeks, 60% of the time GK and 40% of my time, devoting to the other sections, I would absolutely go nuts.
Yeah.
So that was something I just could not afford to do. So I was like, I'll give one week off, and then what I'm going to do is I'll cover up for it next week. I'm willing to take 2 days off of school and cover up the prior week's GK in that.
Right.
So so I had a month-wise topic list that I used. We all had a collective topic list. I also had a personal list.
Okay.
So I just, at the end of the month, I used to just check those topics off. And CLAT post, I believe the Legal Edge's monthly, GK compendiums,
Yeah.
those were really good. It was a lot of fun to go through them as well. So I think, the Legal Edge, CLAT post, News Canvas, Drishti was just a landmine. I did not have the courage to go through that.
Okay.
Uh,
Right.
and News Canvas and the CL Manthan 2.0, and just the newspaper notes that I had made for on a weekly basis were essentially that was it. That was all I did for GK.
Got it. And did any of that come for the paper?
That's a wonderful question. Okay. My GK score. I really thought IELTS was the place where my GK score would go for a toss.
Right.
And CLAT, I think fairly a little bit more predictable in some ways. That was what my assumption was going in.
Right.
But obviously the exact opposite had to happen.
Right.
So yeah, I think for ALED, just GK today, one-liners and News Canvas one-liners were all I did for ALED, because I was like, I knew that I hadn't prepped as much for it. So I was like, it's okay, fine. I'm okay with those 30 questions.
Right. So looking back, what are your thoughts on all, looking back at the whole preparation journey? What are your thoughts on
it? The entirety of the preparation journey, I just think, some of the advice that I'd gotten from my seniors was, it was around the lines of give up your life for 8 months.
Yeah.
Most of them, I mean, fair enough, because they got really, really good ranks. It was in like the top 15, top 10. And I was like, that's fair. That's amazing.
Right.
But I knew I could not do that. I'm someone who has to do, the extracurriculars. I just feel better about myself. And I needed to keep some of the sports and all of that going, because that's what really got me through it. Right. So I was okay with not getting like a top 20 rank in exchange for getting 1 week off every month to do work.
I mean, without a doubt, I've seen too many people go literally, unfortunately, and I'm using the word literally, unfortunately, is that go crazy because they overwork themselves and burn themselves out, and they're in a bad place after that. So it makes, and you're going to the same college now, your rank doesn't matter anymore. Once college starts, everyone, the rank doesn't matter anymore, apart from for rank parents and stuff like that. So there's no guilt in that at all.
So I think first year maybe I could have focused a little bit more and gotten really into the habit of making GK notes consistently. Right. I think that would have helped me out in that bottleneck period right before CLAT, in which I felt the pressure of covering a lot of the gaps in my GK. Right. And I just really hope that I would have found like Khan Academy and GMAT and all of that just a little bit earlier. It would have helped ease a lot of my anxiety and just qualms I had about myself and my own abilities. I feel like it would have eased them down a little bit. But yeah, I suppose at the end, I had a lot of fun with the friends I made along the way. A lot of them are coming to NLS as well. So yeah, I suppose it was worth it in the end.
That sounds really fun. So that sounds really fun. So you spoke a lot about the anxieties, and really it was about confidence in a sense, really. So so the last month was GK. What was the plan going into ALET and CLAT, and what was the mental space that you were in then, and right before the exam, the night before, during the exam? If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So for ALET, my GK preparation was, as I said, basically just GK today one-liners
Right.
and news canvas one-liners. So, and I thought, I mean, it helped. It definitely helped. I got a lot more in ALET GK than I did in my CLAT GK. It's embarrassingly a lot more.
Okay.
But yeah,
Right.
so ALET,
Right.
I'd done the previous year's papers and I felt fairly confident. The questions I feel like were not as complex, or the pattern at least was something that I was familiar with. And I felt like it was something I could do because when I took them as mocks, I got pretty good scores and I felt confident going into ALET, surprisingly. But we went there and obviously the pattern was entirely, there was no pattern basically
Right.
for ALET.
Right.
They just yeah, I think getting over that initial shock and just still, trying to get through the paper just was the only strategy I had. And realizing that GK was at the back and I had to do that in the last, I believe, 4 minutes was what I had left for GK. And I really just had to power through that. So just always look at that little
Yeah.
blue sheet when you open the paper, which tells you on which pages what sections are.
Right.
Always do that. I learned from
Absolutely.
that.
Right.
That was
Luckily, you won't have to write it again. But yes, it's good advice
yes,
for everyone. Yes.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I won't have to write it again.
Right.
So ALET, I felt a lot more relaxed than I did for CLAT, but then I went and wrote the ALET paper and that absolutely stumped all of us. So I think to the point that my dad asked me for 3 days post ALET, how is the ALET hangover? Because like he thought that's how I was behaving after the ALET paper.
Wow.
But yeah, I think we just got through that, and then we were a little bit, I guess, a teensy bit more anxious, a little bit more on edge for the CLAT paper because that was what most of my friends and I were focusing on. That was like the thing that we were preparing for. So a lot more was on the line there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose it was just to remember that even if the pattern is switched around, which consortium wouldn't do. Consortium is a lot more reliable than LNUD.
Okay.
With just
That's the
look at
first
that.
time. I mean, that's a very relative measure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Look at that teensy paper which says on which pages what sections are. Just keep calm even if you're surprised. It's all right, which is good advice for GK always.
Right.
Never feel comfortable with GK.
Right.
But I suppose, yeah, that was it. Just that everybody's writing the same paper as you. Everybody probably went in having the same assumptions because they all had the same, past year material to go off of. So it's very likely that everyone there is having the same assumptions, working off of those same assumptions. So everybody is just as stumped as you. So the only upper hand you have is to keep calm and moving through it.
Right. Keep calm and carry on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that meme old already? Am I a boomer in terms of memes now? But yeah, I don't even know what the new memes are. Yeah. Okay. Cool. It was a big deal in my day, back in my day. So yeah. So this I love to dig a little deeper into that if you're okay with that, and you don't have to be. So feel free to not elaborate if you don't want to. What was the ALET hangover? Like, what was the ALET hangover?
Okay, so ALET, at least this is how I thought about ALET and CLAT. So ALET and the notification was released, I remember, on October 30th or 31st.
Yeah.
And they said it's exactly a week before CLAT. So
Yeah.
until then, ALET was like not even in our sights. It was something we were
Correct.
not prepared for. We did not anticipate.
Yeah,
So
everyone thought it would be like later on in 2023. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was something we did not expect. So October 31st is when the notification came out, and we were like, oh, well, we've been preparing for CLAT a lot longer. So for me, CLAT would be my main exam and ALET would be my backup.
Right.
Because I felt safer looking at the previous year's papers in CLAT, in of ALET, and how I'd done them when I'd taken them as mocks. So I felt a little bit safer, and I was like, this would be my backup paper.
Right.
Is how I felt about it. And the GK that we have to cover for both those papers are different.
Is different.
That
Yeah,
was something,
absolutely.
yeah. So while GK is a lot more about contemporary issues and the people, places, names, events that pop up in them and
Right,
related events,
right,
ALET is very much just like very obscure, random, like
right,
one-liners that will just spring up on you out of nowhere.
right,
But there are sources to learn for ALET as well.
right,
And lucky enough, those sources were very helpful this time. So ALET, I went into it thinking it was my backup paper. It was something that I felt safer in. But obviously the paper, I mean, to look back on it, I had more attempts than my friends. On that day, I had around 120 attempts,
wow,
and some of my friends had around 100, 105. Some of
you're
them
right,
had under 100 attempts as well.
correct, right,
So I felt a little bit safer. And
right,
then the answer key came out, didn't check it whatsoever. And then so I think it was just the feeling of being blindsided, of being thrown a paper that you just absolutely did not expect. And because it's a competitive exam, you're bound to take it with a lot more weightage.
yeah,
And I just felt a little disheartened that I had not given my best at ALET. And I just felt, yeah, I was really hung up on the fact that I did not see it coming.
right,
And yeah, I just felt a little dejected that I had, completely thrown my supposed to be backup paper out the window right there.
sure, sure,
And
right,
so I just felt like, yeah, I was on unstable ground and CLAT was coming up and I didn't feel that great at that point in my
right,
at time about my CLAT prep. So it was just something that I was hung up on and I was not feeling the best at the time.
right. And how did that because there wasn't a lot of time. There was a week until the CLAT, which was the main attraction that you guys have been focusing all your attention on. So how did that affect that week, or how did it affect that week of preparation, or especially mental preparation or actual preparation for the
Okay. In terms of actual preparation, in terms of the time that it took up, I
yeah,
think it definitely overshadowed. It was on Sunday and it definitely overshadowed Monday for me. I
right,
just felt really insecure and like underconfident in myself and the paper that I had just given. So I just did not feel like I had to me to get up and go do like 10 hours of GK that day to revise all the GK. I just did not feel like I had it in me. And at the same time, we spent a lot of time worrying about whether or not to file objections, whether
sure,
we had the time to sit down, type them, think them through, run it by our teachers, and feel like they were valid or warranted, justified objections to raise. So I think just that all of that took up Monday as a whole, and it was
wow,
we only had 6 days before CLAT, and one day just absolutely went away in that. So I think the next day is when we really came to our senses. We have 5 days. We did the math. If this is how many hours of work I can do per day over the next 5 days,
right,
right? This is the upper limit of what I can do.
right.
This is the average of the median amount, and this is the least I need to feel confident about myself on D-Day.
Nice.
So
I think that's a really good exercise. Please go on. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I made those like three numbers up, and I really thought about if I can afford to lose any more time, if I wanted to feel my best and hit that upper
Mm-hmm.
limit of how much work I wanted to get done before CLAT.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think somewhere
Mm-hmm.
I was practical enough to realize that of course, CLAT was my main paper, and this I wanted to definitely feel my best, and I had to get this many hours of work done, which I know is not the best measure of how much work you've done, or it's not
Mm-hmm.
really a reflection of how
Sure,
much you know.
sure.
But at the time, it made me feel more confident. So I
Right,
realized that there was really no point in fretting over ALET. What would happen would happen. Nothing could really change it now. And
right,
I had to start immediately to get the work done to feel my best for the next exam coming up.
right.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, I mean, hindsight is 2020, and you're in a much more comfortable place to talk about it now. But at that time, it must have been quite devastating, and really shook your confidence, shook your confidence to some extent, to a large extent. So I think that quality or that character, and it's the word character is really very appropriate there, is of yes, you've been it's like what Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And so that character of getting back up is really something that I think defines you, is something that has enabled you to crack the CLAT, is something that really enabled your success, and is that kind of character based, pulling yourself up out of the out of the doldrums. I'm not saying that you're somebody who's a bad person if you can't do that. That's 100% not what I'm saying. You could walk into the CLAT exam in a really bad place and do your best and still crack it. This is not what this conversation is about. What it's about is uh, really microscoping onto the fact that these exams are hard. They take a lot out of 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds. And in order to crack them, you need to kind of move past yourself in a sense. And this is, and you don't have enough experience doing that at the age of 17. It reminds me, I'll give my perspective on this, for example. ALET was definitely it wasn't as bad as it was for you guys in terms of pattern itself, but I definitely ended up losing 7 marks in the process. I didn't manage my time well. I still managed to crack it, and it was good. But my larger point was that immediately after ALET, and not that this has happened a lot since or before, but immediately after the ALET, it became clear that this needs to be taken much more seriously. So my preparation for my CLAT went up like 100x, and I was just very, very focused on being very strategic and very time oriented. You have to realize that you're not preparing, if I may speak to the broader public for a minute, is that you're not preparing for the subjects, you're preparing for the exam. And when you turn up on that day, and what you do in those 2 hours is really what will make or is the only thing that matters. So being mentally prepared and being in a good, being prepared for that is very important. One thing I like to tell my students, and I wish I had the opportunity to tell you earlier, is don't have any expectations of the exam. I think it's become very clear at this stage that there's absolutely nothing to be gained from having any expectations whatsoever about the pattern, about the syllabus. CLAT, I say CLAT is a harder exam than JEE and NEET, because JEE and NEET have syllabi. They actually have, these topics to be covered. CLAT has no syllabus. CLAT has no textbook. CLAT has no, there is no telling what will come, apart from the fact that there will be the heading of that subject. There is no telling from where what will come, especially for the GK section, and other sections have no expectations whatsoever. So we'll just wrap up with 2 questions then. Thank you so much for your time, Rachana. How was the day of the exam? Yeah.
The day of the exam, thankfully I had a pretty good sleeping schedule down. I was like, this is what I will follow. It's one thing I'm very stringent on. I would not stay up past 11 at any cost, which if you're laughing at, it's fine. You have the right to. So I generally stuck to around, 10:30 to 6 is when I will sleep. And my day starts at 6 and it ends at 10:30, and that's it. Right. So I just, like, my parents knew that if I had my phone in my hand beyond 10:30, like, they could take it away. I told them, like, snatch it from me. Right. So it was something, having a good sleep schedule is important. And if you don't have one, fix it much, much before CLAT, because you won't be able to fix it in a week or 2 weeks. Right. It's not possible. Right. So yeah, I woke up early. I'm not much of a coffee drinker, chocolate milk. I just had like my mug ready, and I was like, right. I just did things that I really liked. We had a lot of time to kill before we had to go to the center. So I just picked up a book I liked. I just read a couple pages just so I was in the jive of things. I knew that I certainly have not forgotten how to read. I just assured myself that, okay, yes,
Right.
I can still comprehend information. I can still make coherent sentences and understand them.
Right.
So I just read a couple pages of my favorite book.
Right.
Yeah, felt more confident, just took a run, had a breakfast I really enjoyed, drove down to NLS, and yeah, it was a good paper. It was a very, very fun paper, if I can say anything.
Right.
The legal section was so fun. I remember finishing the paper and like just absolutely smiling. Like my center was NLS, and Sudhir Krishnaswamy, the vice chancellor, standing in front of us as we were finishing it. I finished the paper and I'm just grinning for a full 10 seconds because I knew I had fun doing the paper. Although it was very lengthy,
Yeah.
the material was really good. The
Yeah.
material was really good. The questions were engaging. The logical section was easier than expected.
Yeah.
So all of those things, I suppose, in Cacophony made me feel really happy that it was done, it was over with, and I could just go home and like sleep, binge watch, do whatever I wanted.
That's really great. So I think I mean, so if anyone who wrote the 2023 paper is watching this, uh, I just remember that these are her views, not mine. That's all I'm saying. No, if you're a dropper right now or something along those lines, I think there's a good lesson here of really the enjoying the paper. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you can inculcate that in yourself of really engaging with the material, that's when it goes from being work to play. So any last piece of advice for anyone in 11th right now or anyone preparing for the next CLAT or anything of that sort?
I do, and I have one question to ask
Yeah. Yes.
after that. I have a
Yeah.
question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, my advice, I think, would just be that don't feel like you've been cornered because of material or lack of community, or whether you feel like your mental health is not in the best place. I think just know that you have options to fix all of them. You can always find pirated material on Discord and Telegram. Always exists. Just find the right people on Reddit to get you on there. Um, there's always material you can reach out to. People from your center, teachers will always be willing to help you if you like bring up a doubt at quite literally any point. I've had friends who called teachers at 2 a.m., 12 a.m., the day before CLAT, the day before ALED, and it's always been, they've always left the call feeling better.
Yeah.
And yeah, just don't put too much pressure on yourself. Remember that everybody is your own age, and any upper hand that they may have, you can get that too if you put in the work, be it with your reading speed or with respect to any challenge that you have. Just I feel like devoting time or just sitting down with it and engaging for a second really helped me get over my whatever stumped or sullen mood after ALET, and I hope it helps you too. Yeah,
Right.
that's about it.
Got it. So there'll be a part 3, I guess. I mean, I thought there would just be a part 2, but there will be a part 3 to this really engaging episode with Rachana. And she has a question for me. So let's find out what that is in part 3, which should be perhaps the shortest video that we'll do. But I will see you in part 3. All right.